Hi, everybody.
Let's
So I'll just say, let's go ahead. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Guiding Principles Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee. Today, Wednesday, July 6th at 1:02 p.m. And so let's go ahead and do roll call. James?
Present.
Tom?
Yes.
Wyatt?
Here.
Melissa? And Carrie is here. All right, and so then we'll just move down the agenda. And so approval of meeting minute notes from June, was it the 29th? Is that right? Looking back, I don't have the proper agenda in my hand, so make sure I'm saying the right date. Yep,
Yeah,
June
that's
27th.
correct. That's correct, and I move to approve.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And all right, so we'll just roll into the meat of the meeting. And so Wyatt, let me give you the ability to share your screen. That should do it. Great. Oh, and I forgot to tell Max last week that we appreciate how to tell him. I just realized I didn't.
I bumped into him. He was packing up to go camping, and I said, "Hey, I like your." Turns out you actually are a writer. He's like, "Yeah, thanks." Yeah.
I think it's in his genes. Okay, so why do you want to kind of take it from here?
Sure.
I'm good with that.
I think we were supposed to just one more breath of this independently. I think everybody's really satisfied with it, but just one last breadth of perspective on this, and just if there's any other comments. Otherwise, I think we'll kind of bake it.
Read it.
Okay. Livingston is a community that is engaged, equitable, and resilient, economically vibrant and diverse, fostering its unique physical character, maintaining its relationship to the neighboring open land. People, economy, place, and context. I think that was really good.
I wish all vision statements were that clear.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Trying to remember now what it was when we started.
Should we go read it? Let's go read it. We can read it just to take a victory lap here for a second, I think.
Yeah.
A dedicated team of leaders working to collaborate with a diverse community to create a vibrant home surrounded by natural beauty, respectful of our unique history, and full of opportunity.
Oh. Terrible.
I think we did well.
Everything we do is great.
Yeah, that was good. I guess really good. Okay, onward. So next was, we really wanted to work on the goal statements, which is where we were last time. I had a clarifying question, just as a group. The original goal statements also had those sentences with them. Are we attempting to get to something like that, or are we going to leave it much more simplistic?
I've also been thinking, Wyatt, and my question might clarify what you're thinking too. I don't know. Can I just jump in?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about how these goal statements aren't particularly goals. In my experience, goals need to be something that is achievable and measurable. And there's many other criteria to really outline what it means to set a good goal. So I've been like sort of thinking and imagining a strategic plan where we have more clearly defined goals that are achievable and measurable, and there might be a lot more than 5 on there. It might be more well-defined goals and more of them. So maybe it's, I don't know, 10 to 12 or something. Just like reflecting on the conversation that we had last time and the very like specific things that our community wants to see move forward. Saying something general like infrastructure is definitely not as specific as implementing these plans that we've created together as a community, like growth policy, active transportation plan, the housing action plan. I know we're going to have a new downtown master plan coming up.
Oh.
Like those are things that we can measure and like move forward that are much more specific than just saying infrastructure. I'm curious what others think about the idea of really being specific and prioritizing some of the things that we've worked on together as a community, especially remembering that none of those things existed when this strategic plan was created. So
just sort of like a general like planning like ethos when it comes to goals at this level. You're right that they have the problem with like safe and healthy community is that there's no there, right? So they're non-directional and you can't get to that point, right? When you talk about like creating them measurable, the one thing that we don't want to do is get so specific that we're hamstringing the executional outcomes of the people who have to do the work, right? So there's a real balance between sort of like these sort of, you know, broad-based kind of achievable goals versus like too specific or measurable where the organization can't do its job, right?
right, and that's why I was thinking like big things that are also specific that we've already defined together as a community. So there's still like the growth policy is huge.
Right.
So I mean, there might be things to pull out from that, but like narrowing it in a bit more than what we have how we previously had it laid out. Because we have spent some significant money as a community on these community plans together. So I'm really thinking about how do we move those forward? That seems to be the question that constituents are asking all the time. And so this could be a place to incorporate some of those plans.
Yeah, I mean, just to give an example goal that I think is at the right level, we did the Shane's strategic plan, which we just went through and redid their vision, mission, goals, and strategy. And the goal that would be corresponding to this was we're going to double participation in the next 5 years. And below that, there's a whole series of like, you know, we're developing a secondary, like the whole summer concert series was out of that. And that had goals associated with it and attendance metrics and all that. But that's all defined by Russ and Erica as the EDs. And ours was just like, we want to have 5 main areas of focus that result in doubling the participation over the next 5 years. So if there's kind of corresponding large level goals like that are in the growth plan is probably the best place to look, right? Then I would agree. We probably don't want to like put too specific of numerical values on them, but like things that are kind of broad based would be great.
A railroad crossing.
Change parade route.
Bring up something.
I'm glad our elected officials are here.
And the railroad crossing was something that was in the last strategic plan.
Mhm.
And I think that I can't remember everything from the current growth policy, but I know that like transportation, I think that transportation in the north side was included as part of it. I have to look back at the transportation section, but I feel like, again, at this level, we can't like say, here's the one specific solution for the north side transportation challenges.
Yeah,
But,
we wouldn't say like build 200 affordable housing units, right? But we would say something like support diversified housing choices, that result in a balanced community, or something along that's really poorly phrased, but like, so we can say like we're going to have a goal of providing, diversified housing options without having a goal of saying we're going to build 100 units, right? That's too detailed.
Well, the city isn't going to build any units, I would think. I mean, I would think.
Well, or support or
private
foster or
districts.
sponsor or
Right.
whatever, right?
They could,
Okay.
They could.
Couldn't.
other cities have.
And I guess my point is like, we don't need to invent a lot of new stuff either. Like we have all of these community driven documents that we've spent,
A lot of money.
many tens of thousands of dollars on all these different documents that have highlighted the strategies to move forward, like what the community wants to see. So some of those, this might be the place to work it in to make sure that we're moving things forward, is kind of what I was thinking.
I agree. Maybe we should find an example.
Yeah, I'm kind of like looking through, I don't know if other people have I'll look through and see what I can find.
Tom, it looked like you had something. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, no, I was really encouraged last week by that discussion and being specific and not so, and really something like either in whole or in part implementing the growth policy, and that can take a lot of forms. It's like, bringing the zoning code in conformance with the growth policy. There's a lot of differences there. Or you could, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking of sort of types of or subject headings for goals. One of which could be growth, one of which could be housing, one of which could be transportation, one of which open space.
Sorry, I'm moving through screens. Apologize. The Livingston's website's down.
I think the website is down. I tried to get in before the meeting and couldn't. So I think that there must be something going on with the website.
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we could take off from the growth policy. I mean, you could use the growth policy, get all your goals from there, because I'm not sure what it doesn't touch.
That's fair. That's very fair.
I mean, it was a pretty comprehensive document that sort of, touched on most things that you would want to set goals about.
I have some examples from the growth policy based on the conversations we've been having. If you want to hear some example goals.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in the housing section, goal 5.1 is provide housing options to meet the needs of all residents. And then there's, looks like 5 objectives, and each objective has somewhere between 1 to 6 strategies. So it's a pretty it's a pretty big menu for the commission and the legislative and executive branches to work forward from. So it's not too dialed in. And then we also have a whole housing action plan that has been added as well as an appendix to this. We just voted on it pretty recently. And then under the transportation section, there's one, goal 8.1 is improve pedestrian and bicycle safety within the city, which has 4 objectives, and each objective has 1 to 6 strategies. We also have an active transportation plan now. That's another appendix to this document. And then I'm on page 74. Goal 8.2 is create a complete and well-maintained transportation network within the city. And one of the objectives there is north side, improving north side traffic flow. So I think that, Tom's right, that there is a lot of strategies that are spelled out in the growth policy.
Right.
And I think there are some big heading goals that could be.
It looks like a land use plan right there.
Yeah, it is.
It
It's
would
Look
be.
at that. There it is. It says it on the
It
header.
is.
Well, if you haven't read it, it's a good read.
I've read it.
It's definitely worth reading. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here for sure.
So I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe, and I said this I think last time too, that maybe we go back to some of these foundational documents, and some of them are really narrowed in. Like the housing action plan has maybe I don't remember exactly, Carrie will know, like a dozen or so strategies, and maybe like half of them apply to the city. So it's really like a manageable it's a manageable place to start in combination with the growth policy.
Well,
It's a lot to choose from, so I don't think it's too dialed in why if it, we could
Is
like
it-
take opportunities and come at
Is
it
it
with like
what-
a flexible, come at it from like a flexible place that makes it achievable. So,
I mean, isn't what we want to do sort of, I mean, the growth policy is a huge document, much bigger than this one. Is what we're sort of trying to do is distill out of that the important points to focus on. Just really reinforce the fact that you want to implement the thing. And
Well, that was my question. That was my question I had, Tom. Is it appropriate for us to pull elements out that we think are the largest priority? I think, Melissa, you made the point last time that the city does better when it's focused. Or are we really tasked with more saying like, yeah, implementing this document's been created is really the goal, right? And it has a strategy for implementation in it, right? It's got a timeline and strategy to implement in the document.
yeah, are we going to try to restate it, or are we going to try to distill it?
Yep.
Or do we just say implement it?
Go do it.
Yeah, and
Well, that's what
so-
I'm thinking. Wouldn't the goal be the implementation of the plan?
Sure.
Well, and then couldn't then, so if, one of the goals is the implementation of the growth policy. And then does it, and Melissa, maybe you can help me with this, just trying to think this through. So then like year to year, potentially the commission is looking at the growth policy and, saying like, okay, are we making our way through it? Are we following this? Or is the commission also having the ability to then say, these are our priorities within the growth policy. This is what we want the city to be focusing on. And then that's what because obviously, and we said this last week, that the strategic plan is used as a document to evaluate the city manager's performance.
Or
so-
to simply restate goals and things that have already been decided, like the growth policy. It just emphasizes that this is important. I mean, we're saying, what we're supposed to be saying is this is what we're trying to achieve, which are goals. And in a fairly simple way, rather than, a lengthy document.
Carrie, did you want me to respond to your question?
Please.
Yeah, please.
So in my experience, there has not been a standard way that the commission has done it. Different communities do this differently. In my experience, the commissioners have not had a chance to say, these are our priorities as a commission and the direction we want to see things go. There has been some more, which is a challenge, right? There has been an opportunity. It was very early on in my time as a commissioner. But it wasn't formalized. And so when processes like that are not formalized, it's definitely more challenging to like measure and see where we are as a group of commissioners, right, with different priorities. So I guess, and the other thing, Carrie, is like, we've never had a conversation about where to begin with the growth policy. And the feedback that I've gotten about it is that it's big, it's a lot.
Yeah.
There's competing priorities within the growth policy or things that compete against each other in the growth policy.
Yeah.
So like just having something as general as like implement the comprehensive plan or implement the growth policy is like so not dialed in that it could really be at the whim of whoever is making that decision. And I don't know that that's what, Livingston wants right now. I think we 5 have definitely been in agreement about some really top priorities for our community. And we don't have those written down anywhere. I mean, we know it's a priority because we keep investing in plans on it, but at some point we have to implement the plan. And I think So that's what I guess I'd like to see is this is a unique opportunity for direct citizens to directly tell the commission what we want the commission's priorities to be. Does that kind of make sense? So it's like
Oh.
the more
Right.
pointed we make it to the commission, the more I think the commission can like help create those this is really the chance for the citizens to tell the commission through a direct citizen engagement process. Like you all didn't have to go through like running for office to help influence this, right? And like you can say like commissioners, these are the most important things that we want city staff to be working on. Like this is what we want you to prioritize when it comes to policy. And then direct action should follow. But the more vague we have it, like make Livingston healthy, I mean, that's like,
Who can disagree with that?
who
Right.
could disagree?
Right.
And how
Who
many
can execute?
No, we
many
want
ways could it
everybody to be sick.
how many ways could that be interpreted, right? Like somebody could say, well, it's healthy for me, so I think that the actions we took are fine. So I think for me, Carrie, what I'm hoping to get out of this is like a chance for citizens to directly tell us commissioners what our top goals need to be. And a chance to put that in writing in a way where when the staff is working out their plan and their priorities, it's very clear what's important to the commission. What's important to the commission should be what's important to the community. So it's a very like direct way to like shape our government based on community priorities. And I think the more specific and clear we can be in these goals, the better chance that our community is going to be moving in that direction that we're hoping to get to. Does that make sense? I feel like that was a lot of words, but does that answer your question, Carrie? We haven't done it this way before, ever, in my time on the commission.
I think it 100% answered my original question, which was, what are we really trying to do with goals? And I think you completely convinced me. I think we should try to not make broad, generic statements. We should try to say these are the things we care about.
And, we're going to have a new city manager at some point in the not too distant future. None of us know who this person is going to be. That person is also going to come to the table with their own ideas and their own experiences. And they'll be leading that whole branch of government. So I imagine that there'll be some back and forth dialogue between the legislative and executive branches of government, as we move the strategic plan forward. So it's not like this is set in stone once it leaves our ad hoc committee, but at least maybe it's like in a better visionary space of what the community wants as a work plan, the beginning of a work plan.
If I was applying to be city manager, I think having a very clear statement of where the city was coming from or where the citizens were coming from would be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree, Tom.
No, James, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, and I remember on page 4 of this plan that we're working on now, right after the goals, there was things to consider. There was a list of things like the Night Sky Act, just a handful, 4 or 5 things that looked like they were, when this was written in 19, possibly the inklings of starting this plan of prioritizing. It like didn't make it into the plan, but it's something to consider. So it was obviously on and at a bullet point level of, I just remember the Night Sky thing. I don't remember what the other ones were, papers upstairs. But I think like that style potentially of this is what, I guess exactly what you're saying. These are the things we want you to do. Here's a list, 50 things.
Well,
Get started on that.
that list is being started right in front of us here.
And that,
I
James,
think it's starting to be a decent list. Now we have to decide what we're going to say about it. But are there any other subjects that should be on that list?
and James, the Night Sky did fall into the growth policy at some point, I think, too. So I think it got wrapped in there in that process as well. So
I see that here, James. It's actually on the very last page, and it says topics to consider for strategic plan updates. And then it had economic health goal or strategy, native landscaping, noise reduction, preserve the night sky, And then topics to consider for ballot language, and then it listed a few things there too.
Right, yeah, that's what I was remembering.
Can I just, as we start to build this list out, I think, again, I'm just going to reiterate, Ms. I think your point's really well taken. On page 107, it starts to talk about implementation of the growth plan. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because it might just help spur some more conversation out of us. I'm not validating this, but it talks about immediate needs and near-term needs, which is kind of the time horizon I've been thinking about personally. So like community gateways, entrances into Livingston, policies to restore the historic quality, supporting the arts. But you see, like, these are really generic, some of these. Traditional, here you go, Tom, traditional neighborhood design and active transportation, promote grid street networks. There you go, buddy. Forever. Forever.
And I think that one's already done. I mean, I think we already updated our subdivision regs.
Like, this is done, right? Encourage residential density.
I think
That's
we
done.
might have some more zoning that we might have to do.
There's quite a
updated
bit.
zoning. But yeah,
There's quite a, I mean, I think as an observation, sort of looking at how this has proceeded since the growth policy, it's been kind of on a piecemeal basis. I mean, things have been rezoned as people have sort of asked for them. You know, and the growth policy really sets out a vision for what should be where. And it doesn't, it's only a recommendation. It doesn't have any teeth at all. And I think the city should maybe do two things, among many others, is it should make the zoning code consistent with the growth policy. And it should really make kind of a statement as to where the city's boundaries should be. I mean, and there's two parts for that. There's the city boundary itself. And I mean, the city's been making an effort in the last few months to sort of fill in the little pieces of the city that are inconsistent or should be in the city or out of the city, or they've been doing a lot of really small scale acquisitions. And you know, but implicit in that is, you know, this is where the city is and this is where the city isn't. And then the second part of that is the ETJ, which is the 2-mile sphere of influence, sometimes called the donut around the city, where the city has you know, a say in how that land use gets implemented. And the growth policy largely says that this should be more open than not. It should be pretty much open space. You know, and those are pretty strong statements that previous planning documents did not make.
Maybe a goal is adherence to the growth plan.
Well,
Well,
If you're gonna say
implementing it means giving it teeth, putting it into regulation.
modify it.
Yeah, well, put it, you know, should that land use plan that's in the growth policy be the land use plan of the city, or should it be the current zoning plan, which are very different?
Obviously the issue of housing has come up. I think we need to have a goal associated with that somehow. I think, Tom, to your point, zoning and planning, there's some sort of goal that speaks to the future, which could be implementing the land use plan or zoning planning plan that's in the growth policy, those two sections, right?
Yeah.
Transportation's come up in our conversation. The downtowns come up in our conversations. Small businesses supporting it. I don't know if it's come up a lot. That matters to me. I think that adds a lot of really great character. Our nonprofits have come up a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
The arts have come up more than once in our conversation. I'm just trying to think of like other things.
Let's add some of those things to this list and just see if we want to keep them or not.
Okay, I'll just keep adding to them.
And not to speak for James, but James, I feel like I've heard you say safety or safe community, or is that right? I didn't want to,
EMS.
I'm not putting anything in your mouth, but I feel like I've heard that from you. So I wanted to make sure we captured that.
When you say safe community, are you like mental health? Are you talking crime? Are you talking, where are you going?
Crime. I'm talking crime rates. I'm talking police officers per citizen. I'm talking about EMS EMS response times. I'm talking about the wildland urban interface along the Bangtails. I'm talking about safety.
Those are all, yeah, I think all those things are subcategories of safety.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some detail to
Yeah,
it.
got it. I mean,
Some
like
concept, yeah.
I mean, safety is a
safety
catch-all.
would be a
but-
subject heading, like housing is a subject heading.
Right, yeah.
And
There is to James's point, there's a local services section of the growth policy. One is goal 7.1, continue to provide a robust first response network to the city of Livingston. 7.2 is ensure that residents' needs are met through local services. So there's that section 7 gets at some of the things that were highlighted that are like some strategies highlighted are 911 software for dispatch and coordinating with Park County, implementing recommendations of pre-disaster mitigation plan and community wildfire protection plan. So there's a starting point here in the growth policy too. And then the other section is some of the things that you named, Wyeth. Some of the other needs.
Just some other things that kind of always seem to come up. I'm not necessarily advocating for them, just things I hear around town all the time. Government fees and service fees, recreational activities, like particularly like the rec center access to indoor recreational activities in the winter. That access comes up pretty regularly. I think that, and I put down the school quality. That's a conversation piece a lot.
put down recreation on that list while you're doing it.
Indoor, outdoor, Tom, what are you thinking?
Well, as a general, I mean, those are all subheadings of that general heading. I mean, both of them.
Yeah, okay. Mental health comes up. I put it down just under safety, like that.
It's under 7.2.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to say.
I mean, we're not going to get anything that isn't in the growth.
Wyeth, what
Yeah.
do you see Wyeth our role is at school quality, since we don't have jurisdiction over.
Yeah, you're
schools,
right.
so-
It's got nothing to do with you, actually. It just gets lumped in with the city. You don't know what you think about it, though. I mean, it's just like the traditional. So, like, I always think about it like there's like the traditional Livingston, and there's like the new Livingston, which is way better. The traditional Livingston was always like really poor, a lot of crime and drugs, and the schools sucked, right? And now it's like, oh, we're kind of moving away from a lot of that kind of baggage that we had. So the schools come up every once in a while in that conversation.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Just as like a placeholder. So
Yeah.
smart growth is goal 3.4. I just like if we can start maybe tying it to
Yep.
documents so it's not ambiguous. And when I see the points, I can bring them up. So I don't think the schools
Safety was
are
7.2, right?
and 7.1. The housing section is section 5 plus the housing action plan,
Oh, yeah, which is now an
which is a
appendix.
new appendix. But I would take schools off personally because that's not, we don't get to make those decisions, but I would add one thing that we don't have on here is, and I'll find it. It's something about the economy and I will find it in this growth policy.
Hey,
Why
Wyatt,
was-
Finish with us. I'm going to say it.
It's goal 6. Goal 6 is has to do with supporting businesses, supporting continuing adult education, planning for and attracting new investment to downtown district to support local businesses, supporting initiatives that help local producers and manufacturers, developing tools to attract and retain economic development prospects. And that's just under 6.1. There's a whole section on
But that's under
the tourism stuff.
under the subject of the economy.
That's right, under section 6. So there's a place to start. Maybe we could like narrow it in, like pick some things out as a place for the, you know, economy's big. Maybe we can narrow it in together. Like housing is big.
Yeah.
Maybe we can
Or
maybe
what do we
can-
want to say specifically about the economy?
Well, I think
Well-
I'd look to the plan personally, but
I just, for my own opinion, it's pretty much about the job, stupid, right? Right now, the biggest thing with jobs is housing.
Mhm.
Like, it-
Nobody can live here. Nobody.
When we talked about this before, it used to be that you tried to find business owners to create jobs first and then housing followed. It's almost completely the opposite now.
Why would you?
transportation is section 8, by the way.
Do
Transportation.
you want to say anything about VRBOs?
I think that VRBOs fall under housing.
They do,
I
absolutely.
think they're in
they
it.
do.
I think
Absolutely.
they're
they
in
do.
it.
Yeah, I mean, that would.
No, I mean, but it's one of the, under the subject of housing, you want to make several substatements. And one of, you know, so you're going to talk about workforce housing, you're going to talk about VRBOs, you're going to be talking about housing growth for non, you know, more wealthy people. I mean, there's a lot of things you can say about it. You could say beyond sort of saying where the housing can be, which is the zoning, should the city go beyond just simply allowing things to promoting things?
I think that we already
You
did
say
this
no,
in the
Jim.
plans. I think that
You say no.
the housing section and the housing action plan get into some of those things. Carrie, didn't you all work on that in the housing action
So
plan?
there is a strategy within the housing action plan that just talks about VRBOs and evaluating them. I think we need to do something about VRBOs, in my personal opinion. Yes, we need to look at that situation and figure it out because it's creating less housing for the rest of us and
Yeah.
in the town. You know, what do we do with that? That's a very
There's
long
a-
conversation and there's not, you know, like we would have to figure out what that answer is. You know, I don't think anybody knows exactly what that would be at this moment.
So
You could make a-
strategy.
You could make a statement though of
Tom, hold on, Melissa was saying something.
Strategy
sorry.
5.1.2.1 is explore creating a policy to regulate short-term and vacation rentals. So we've already voted on that as a commission in this growth policy as part of the whole document. So we could just pull that one out and say, okay, it's time, city commission and city staff to like evaluate and figure out if there's a policy. So I mean, I think that some of these things, what I'm trying to say is that many of these things already exist and we've highlighted them. I think we can just pull them out of these plans and say, we need to bump this to the top of the list or something. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm
Maybe what-
wanting to hear what you guys think.
maybe that's what these goals should do, is talk about which parts of the growth policy are most important.
Yeah, I'm not against that.
So let me ask you that, who makes that determination? Is that what we're doing right now? Is to
That's it.
decide, that's
That's-
it, right?
that's
Okay.
what
I think that is it.
Yeah,
Carrie, that's what the commission does. And so the commission created, we set policy priorities. And so we created this ad hoc committee in
Do
order to
that.
get direct citizen engagement. And then this recommendation will go to the commission. And the commission might say yes, they might say no, they might say yes with some edits.
But it'll give them something to chew on.
It's like a new way, I think it's a new way to think about, now that we didn't have all these plans when we first made
Yeah.
this, right? And so it's a new way to think about what is most important in this like next time frame under this new administration that's going to be coming in.
What's important to do?
Yeah. And I think
Well-
maybe some things will be bigger and some will be smaller, but like, and who knows if this is right or if it'll get edited, but at least it's thinking critically, I guess, about what the most important goals are for our community.
And
Why don't we
coming
spend the
up
next
with-
couple of weeks going through the growth policy and peel out individually, I don't know, 5 things a week from each, subheading that we've determined we want to work on.
Yeah, I think that's
Get a
good.
list, 25 things.
Yeah, I think that's a good direction, James. I think we should try to have things be maybe slightly higher level if we could, but I think maybe that's a good place to start. I mean, the best line so far that I've heard has been Tom saying we should adjust zoning and planning regulation to reflect the growth plan. Right? That was
Yeah.
that's a very achievable goal. It's very clear, right? I think trying to get to more statements like that, I think would be really good.
Can you write that down so we don't lose it?
Yeah.
Put it under either
Thanks.
growth or zoning and plan.
So let me ask this, and I'm sorry, because I think that I'm a visual person, and so this is how I'm trying to like get this sort of straight in my brain. So are we looking to create something like that's here in this policy that we already have, right? So that we have this one goal and then we pulled out all these strategies. Are we going there? Are we going like, here's a goal and here's some subtext under the goal, that then that's what we're presenting to the, like, I don't know. I think I'm confused. So I need some direction. I'm sorry.
I can speak to what I think we're doing, and then somebody can tell me if they agree or not, or what they would change. I think that we are not filling out the spreadsheet. That'll be like city staff, the new city manager, right? We'll have to figure out, okay, this is the goal that the commission wants achieved. Now it's the city manager's job to figure out how to get that goal across the finish line. Right? So, my understanding of what we're doing is, instead of like 5 sort of big generic category goals, we're going to have more measurable goals, more than 5.
Yeah.
And then the city manager, the new city manager, right? Well, I think this is how Mr. Carter's did it, sat down with department heads and started filling it in to figure out how to move those goals forward. So if we have like, I don't know, something about smart growth, there's a whole bunch of different strategies for smart growth. And like the city staff should be able to like, be like, oh, okay, like this is low hanging fruit. We can do this. This doesn't cost too much. It's just a few votes. Or, oh, this is going to be expensive because it's really expensive to do all the certified mailings for zone changes. So we'll have to plan for that because we need to plan our budget to do the mailings for the zone change. Like that they'll sort of like plan it out in the spreadsheet part, and we're just doing like the top line.
But our goals are going to be more like phrases, like what we have here with adjust zoning and planning regulations to reflect. I'm sorry, my Zoom's really
Now, would that go under growth, general growth? I mean, you could say adopt smart growth policies.
I also think we should, trust like what Wyeth has been saying and think about things that are measurable and in a generic way, but maybe we do include some like specific things we want to see moved across the finish line. Knowing like that the vacation rental conversation, it looks like one bullet point when we write it down, but in fact, we all know that the work plan for that conversation is going to be
Huge.
a whole thing.
And it's politically controversial.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to figure out. Like the ETJ came up. I know that's in our growth policy. I think we have to do more research as a city to see what can we do, because the ETJ
Right.
involves a lot of conversation with the county and the county growth policy and like what form of government are we? And there's all these unanswered questions. So it looks like a
you
simple
could-
bullet point, but it's actually like a pretty big lift for the executive branch to like, and the city manager especially, to answer all these questions and get the information together so the commission can vote on anything. So,
But you could make a statement like, you know, implement or put together I'm not saying this right. Put together a deal with the ETJ, which means doing whatever you have to do with the county, you know, and getting a land use plan out there, or implementing that the growth policy out there. And I mean, you can make a statement that implies all those detailed things that you have to do to get there. But what you're saying is that it's important to do that, which I think it is.
right. So I think, I guess, Carrie, like, I think it's gonna look similar and different than what we have right now.
Yeah. No,
And like smart growth it's probably the subdivision and site review planning processes that need to be adjusted to match smart growth priorities, right? At least when I read that list of 10 items, that's where my mind goes. It's the planning office and site review process.
Some of those things are policies and some of them are headings. I mean, I kind of like the way that safety was going, you know, safety is the heading, and in that you deal with crime, mental health, EMS response. However, you're going to have a growth, you know, whether you call it planning or land use or whatever, you know, which implies
I think
the zoning code, blah, blah. Then you're going to have a housing section, and you're going to make several statements about that. This is
I think my problem with strategy is ultimately about what you're not doing, and the growth policy is so all encompassing that, like, if we don't narrow down, like if we want to deal with safety, let's get specific about the issues within safety that we want to. So is it crime rates and mental health? And yes, like let's actually just lay out, these are the priorities we care about, right? And then put an achievable goal to it. And then the whole rest of the growth policy doesn't go away. It's just because ultimately, like, look, let's be honest, there's competing priorities for resources, right? So what we're trying to say is, this is where we want to see the resources deployed as priority.
Well, haven't we all been saying that as we're talking about sort of cherry picking the growth policy for what's really important about it, or what's most immediate about it.
And I think that's probably the homework. And James said that about 10 minutes ago. I mean, I think that's probably what we should do, is go through it and we can use this, and let's each pull 5 statements that we think are kind of the most important, and go from there. I may not be here. In fact, I probably won't be here next Wednesday. I'm in California. Tom, going to Cal Arts with my daughter to tour campus in Pomona and Caltech. So back into your stomping grounds, buddy.
Caltech.
Yeah.
Beautiful campus.
Carrie, how many more meetings do we have?
I was just gonna look at that. Hold on, let me look in my personal calendar. We may have to just extend if people are. I have the 27th. Oh, so we have. So if I have it, and I put it in my calendar for my personal calendar for the right amount of time. So the 27th would be like our 90 days. So that means we have the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th.
Okay.
We certainly could ask for an extension to continue the work if we need. I don't know that that's such a big ask, but that's also an ask of you, our citizen volunteers, to continue this. Do we think that we can? How are we feeling? Do we want to reevaluate on the 20th and then make the decision if we need to extend?
We're going to need a week to finalize what we actually have as our deliverable.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
I
reevaluate on the
don't have any
20th.
problem.
I just don't think you can do it in that. We're going to take. I think we're going to be taking a little more time, and it'd be too bad to cut this short because we have a certain number of meetings. I think you have to spend the time it takes to do the right job.
the other two things is, one, we don't have a mission statement, which we don't necessarily have to, by the way. There's no law that says you have to have both a mission and a vision statement. We could just not have one, and we haven't touched values yet either. So
I think we're really in the meat of what we want to say here.
I think so too. These goals are by far more important than.
Yeah,
Okay, can I make a suggestion, Carrie?
yes,
I
please.
think we need to set time on the next agenda to come up with a plan of like how we're going to check all the boxes that we need to check. Like to figure out the rest of our process moving forward. Like we need this many meetings to figure out our goals. We need this many meetings to get at the value statements or whatever Wyeth has identified. And then that way, when we're making an ask of the commission, because it sounds like we will need to make an ask, the 20th would be enough time because our next meeting is the 28th. So we could ask for an amendment or an addendum, an addendum to the agenda on the 28th to ask the commission to extend if we need to. But I think we need to be clear with the commission in our ask and say like, we need this many more weeks or months, and this is why. So that it's not just like hanging out there, because the commission is going to have a lot on their plates this fall. And this document would be really nice to have in hand when that new hire comes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we are missing an opportunity. And this will help, I think, the commission as well be more unified as we move into the transition with the new hire. So I really think we should be clear about our ask and really like try together to maybe like lay out a path forward now that we're having a better idea of how much time this takes us to,
We could,
you know.
I mean, we could also block some time too and try to do like a 2 or 3 hour meeting if we need to, right? We could do it in person, I guess, too, would be another option.
I think
So-
that would be a nice idea.
We could even do it outside.
Oh,
Could do that too.
in our beautiful open country.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, if we wanted to try to do a blocked session, maybe we could just look at calendars, and because we would also have to give notice in case somebody wanted
Yes.
to come.
Yes.
I could do the 20th or the 27th.
Let's put it on the, let's put it
Agenda
on
for
an
next time.
agenda just because of time.
Right.
I want
Right.
to,
That's
And
perfect.
then, Wyeth, could you, because it sounds like you might not be here next week. So,
We'll try.
okay, and if not, will you so maybe keep in your head that if you're not going to be able to make it, to offer us some time that you might be able to do a block of time.
Yeah, I'll send times and I'll send my takeaways out of this conversation from the growth policy.
And
Okay.
this would be a times within the next few weeks. I mean, not anything beyond that.
No, it needs to be soon. Yeah.
Like in the next couple of weeks, maybe, where we
Yeah.
could do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to
And-
have
and-
some,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Carrie, I'm going to have some traveling for work coming up. And I don't know if I'll have a signal, like I could always potentially call in or just make sure to like send in written comments.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? We can figure that out. So
So are you here next week, Melissa? Are you able to participate next week?
that's what I'm figuring out still.
Okay.
I'm still figuring that out. I'm waiting to hear back from some people about a meeting that's not in my control.
Okay. Well, keep us in that loop. Let's plan, as Wyeth is going to put in here, to pull out at least 5 statements, or, come up with 5 statements that we would offer as goals.
From the growth policy.
From the growth policy. And then come with some ideas of when you might have a block of time next week, if that's possible, please. We can discuss that. And then on the 20th, we will plan to discuss what our long-term schedule might look like. So do we need to ask for an extension, what that might be? Does that all sound?
Yeah, the other thing is, Carrie, by the 20th, you and I as commissioners might have a deeper sense of where we are in the hiring process, since it's going to be moving pretty quickly. So we can kind of like keep all those things in mind as we're And I don't want you all to feel like pressured that we have to have this done. I just think as a commissioner, gosh, it would be like really nice to have in hand for one of the reasons that one of you already stated. I can't remember if it was James or Tom or Wyeth about how helpful it would be as a new city manager to see something like this. So.
And the other thing that I want to be aware of, Melissa and I are commissioners, we're dedicated, we're sort of doing this because this is what we signed up to do. You all signed up to be on an ad hoc committee, which is not a committee that goes on forever. So I also want to be respectful of your time and what you're giving to us. And so I also want us to plan accordingly and make sure that you're comfortable continuing to go past a bit further. So.
I'm very happy to be a part of this just because I think it's really important. We shouldn't waste time, but we should take the time we need.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna start to wrap us up here. So first, we'll do some member comments. So roundtable member comments. James, any comments this afternoon?
No, I think I'm looking pretty good. I'm looking forward to getting further in the weeds with the growth plan. Should help.
Great. Tom, comment?
I think comments have kind of been made as we've gone along. Nothing to add.
Perfect. Wyatt?
I'll just say I appreciate Melissa pushing us to create some specificity on goals. It'd be pretty easy to whitewash this, so I appreciate that.
Melissa?
You all, this has been one of the most challenging times as a commissioner that I've experienced. And this ad hoc committee continues to be a highlight for me.
Oh.
So I just want to thank all of you for like your deep engagement and commitment to the process. I'm so excited to see where we end up. This has been really awesome. Thank you so much, all of you. Really, it means a lot.
And
Good.
I'm just gonna second what Melissa said and just thank you. Honestly, these meetings have been like my highlight of city meetings. I feel like we're accomplishing and having really amazing conversation, and I appreciate it. So thank you for your engagement. I'm looking, I don't see any public. I'll open it to public comment for 1 second. Public comments, no one's here. Moving past. All right, well, I thank you, and I'm going to officially adjourn this meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, shoot.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Melissa, seconded by Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
See you
right,
later.
so I'm gonna adjourn this meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
See you
Thanks,
later.
guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.